All right, everyone. Welcome to ReEducation Camp. My name is Collin Miller, being joined alongside, as always, by the lovely and talented Ms. Karen O'Toole. At the time we are recording this, it is Friday, May 5th, Cinco de Mayo. Now,
Mm.
Karen, before we get into things here, I kind of want to peel back the curtain a little bit for our listeners, our viewers. Now, the both of us grew up in an area of Pennsylvania called the coal regions. Now,
The
I was
Coleridge.
smart and I escaped, and you're still, kind of roughing it out there, slumming
Roughing
it
it is the
with
word. Slum.
with the rest of
So
the fine
precise.
residents. But we in the coal region in Pennsylvania specifically, we don't celebrate Cinco de Mayo. We celebrate something called Sipco de Mayo.
Absolutely. You got it. Sipco Tamayo. You can maybe explain you are more intimately connected with the Sipco brothers who Sipco Tamayo is named for.
Well, I don't want to give their whole history necessarily, but what I want our listeners, viewers to do, if you are not familiar with Mr. Ralph and Daniel Sipko, just go to Google, type in Sipko Brothers, Ralph and Daniel Sipko, and go to Google Images. And I think from there, you can just kind of go down the rabbit hole. Essentially, there were these wealthy philanthropists who were very prominent in northeastern Pennsylvania, donating to the churches and the schools. And they were just very fascinating, like almost,
Eccentric.
yes, these eccentric Howard Hughes type characters that were a fixture of our lives, certainly growing up. So anyway, long story short, I just wanted to wish any Pennsylvania listeners a very happy Sipco de Mayo, regardless of whenever you're listening to this.
Yeah, that's such a perfect thing too. It's like, of course, the version of Cinco de Mayo in the coal region is so I'm trying to think of the word, but it's definitely I like how it's become like a Sipco. It's like I don't know if that's like a Latvian name or some kind of Eastern European, but it's so perfect to encapsulate what it's like to live in the coal region. And I would imagine too, there might be like, okay, you can go to the Sisters Cantina, but I will say too, if people are familiar with the documentary Shenandoah, or as Chendo, as us locals like to affectionately call the little metropolis of Shenandoah as, there is a thriving Spanish American, Hispanic American, Latinx, if you would say, community within the coal region. It's a very diverse region. I'm laughing because it's actually like 95%, like 99.7% white people. But yes, so that is a interesting I think it's a great documentary for people that want to comprehend what it's like to live in a post-industrial wasteland. I was trying to think of a nice way to put it, but really it's just okay, it's a wasteland. But yeah, these just small boroughs that were part of what is considered the Rust Belt, or considered the Coal Belt, if you could maybe perhaps call it. And yeah, so that's just it's just a fun little talk about the coal region where I'm just thriving and surviving, not sure which one, here in the beautiful coal region of Pennsylvania, which is it's a very niche type area because it's not the Poconos, it's not the farmlands of Pennsylvania, or necessarily the Appalachian Trail, or it's its own little tiny pocket of what feels like Appalachia. Well, it essentially is Appalachia, but do you understand what I'm saying? I think most people think of Kentucky, they think of West Virginia, parts of Virginia, and then here in the middle of Pennsylvania, there is somehow a small community that is only about a half of a county that is so similar, is so similar to the experience of, West Virginia or Kentucky coal mine culture. So it's fascinating to freaks like me that are really into it. But
I don't think it's just you. I feel like there is like the coal region history and this area has a broad appeal for whatever reason. Like, I guarantee you I can run into multiple people down here in a week who like are familiar with Jim Thorpe and have some exactly. It's really not that outlandish. And I just I just remember when I was at the Howard Stern show for my stint back in 2014, the one kid who I was interning with, his name was Brandon, and he was a funny kid, and he always, when I told him where I was from, he was like, "Oh, so the Catskills." Like, he was all about the Catskills, and like he knew the whole history, like, and that's what he associated me with, the Catskill Mountains of Pennsylvania, even though like, I grew up nowhere near them. But anyhow, that's just one example of the broader appeal of Pennsylvania, of northeastern Pennsylvania.
Yes, yeah, we could do a whole episode on that at some point in time, but I think it's kind of it kind of leads into some of the stuff we wanted to talk about today, because I think some people are familiar. I mentioned the Molly Maguires, and the Molly Maguires, for people that are not familiar, were an predominantly Irish coal mining group, kind of a vigilante type group. I don't even know if you'd say vigilante, but in some ways a secret society of coal miners who were fed up with the working conditions, and really not just the working, but the living conditions within the mining community. So what had happened was the Welsh people were the first coal miners to come into the Pennsylvania regions, or really in the Americas, because they had mining for so many years. So they came and kind of became the first bricklayers of the coal mining community, and they ended up being the people in charge. They became the mining bosses, were more of like the English people or some of the existing Americans, and a wave of immigration would come over. So you had the Irish, you had different Polish, Ukrainian, all these different Eastern European countries come in, and the Irish were sick of how they were being treated, because not only did you work for the mine, but you lived in a company house. So you paid rent to the company employed you. And if you wanted to go buy groceries or go buy equipment for your job or for whatever, you shopped at the company store, and the prices were outrageous.
Sounds like some form of communism, honestly.
It sounds like what these corporations are laying down for us to live. So what happened was the Molly Maguires, they were a little ragtag of a group, and they kind of did some crazy things and killed some people, some mine bosses, supposedly.
And they were led by Joe Biden, by the way. Not many people know that. He will tell you, though, that Joe Biden was actually the leader of the Molly Maguires. He organized all this. And I mean, we know that he is a champion for workers' rights, for unions, right?
Yes,
exactly.
But that is how the United Mine Workers was birthed out of that, which became like the first and one of the biggest collective bargaining unions the world had ever seen. And in some ways, we really have to, I think the idea of a union, of collective bargaining, is amazing. I think that conservatives have become so anti-union, but it's really just a group of people coming together and saying, no, we want dignity. We want to be paid what we deserve. And unfortunately, like most things, it's been corrupted. The union bosses, always are getting these huge payouts, or forcing people to do things that they don't want to do. If you look at the teachers' unions. So unfortunately, they've been corrupted like most things in this country. But the idea is not terrible. So I think that's maybe why people are familiar with the coal region, because of some of these labor rights that kind of were birthed out of northeastern Pennsylvania. But that said, I think it kind of brings us to today, where a lot of people think that the way it's always been in the United States was the 1950s, where you could graduate high school or practically not graduate high school, get a decent job at a factory and make a great wage. Your wife could stay at home, and you could raise 4 kids and have a car and the American dream. But really, not that did not really exist before the 1940s. That was not the way it was. And there were a lot of children working, which I just actually saw an article this week that there's like 10-year-olds working at McDonald's, but that's a side story.
You got to keep them out of trouble. What else are they going to do?
Yeah, but we need to break the child labor laws. Like, some of these kids need to work a little harder. I mean, some of their parents are making them work on TikTok, but I digress. But we're seeing a huge change in labor again with this chat GPT, with AI. And I was telling you before we jumped on here, I saw a great article I wanted to share from, let me just pull this up, from Business Insider. Said, sorry, I was reading the first, I had another article. Sorry. So unprofessional. I'm sorry.
Oh, you're fine. I mean, people will come to expect this.
Yeah, exactly. And lowered expectations. So tech giants aren't just cutting thousands of jobs, Business Insider reports, they're making them extinct. So they report that companies from Meta to Microsoft to Salesforce have cut jobs in recent months, often in pursuit of efficiency and increased profit margins. What else? By some estimates, more than 250,000 tech workers have been laid off since the start of 2022. And there have been many more roles that have gone unfilled as these industry giants slow down on hiring. And recent data from Indeed shows a more than 50% decline in software development job postings compared to just a year ago, like just a year ago. And then in a recent note by Morgan's, so now it says, thanks to the rise of AI, many of those jobs may be permanently lost, even as these companies get back to growth. In recent note by Morgan Stanley analysts led by Brian Nowak, the bank said AI-based productivity drivers are coming. So they had a great report on that, kind of outlining what's going on. And they said, for more on how AI could impact software developers, their note said, I highly recommend this story from my colleague, Aki Ito. And it said, the end of coding as we know it. And I thought that was interesting because a lot of people recently in the last, I would say 10 years, have either decided that their children need to learn coding or that they themselves could learn coding. And that would equal a ticket to a white collar job. And I would say middle class, if not upper middle class. And
I would say upper.
Yeah. And I think we're starting to see that there's going to be a huge shift. And the Daily Mail also reported that about 83 million jobs are at risk from AI. And they outlined more like receptionist, postal clerk, some other jobs that, like cashier, that might not really surprise anyone. But I think what's surprising is that the white collar jobs, the administrative jobs, they're really the jobs that I think are going to be impacted all the more because they pay well. So companies are going to, if they can nudge out thousands of people who make 6 figures, they're going to care about doing that before they're nudging out people that make $14 an hour. So
sure,
it should be interesting to see. I don't know. I don't have a crystal ball and I don't pretend to.
We've never seen anything like this before in our existence. I was going to say, I don't think that we have much to worry about, though, because the White House just announced the new AI czar who is going to save us from all of this, none other than our own vice president, Kamala Harris. I mean,
oh, thank goodness.
I know
we're fine.
I was especially relieved when I saw that because she's doing such a bang up job at the southern border. You know, there is no human trafficking or drug smuggling or anything like that anymore. So I put my full faith in Kamala Harris. I think that she's going to save us all from a dystopian future. Of course, I am joking. I think that we're headed towards a Soylent Green scenario because I don't. Do you trust the government to come up with any sort of solution for these misplaced folks who have lost their jobs. Where do they go now? It's all going to end up in a Soylent Green scenario where you're being boiled in a pot of soup, um and put on the shelves somewhere, and somebody's going to be, I mean, this is really dark to talk about,
Well,
but
I also think too, we're going to have to power the AI. So maybe perhaps in a matrix type situation, the AI will just feed off of the energy of all these useless, obsolete people. And maybe
the
that's the
useless eaters,
future.
as
The
they call
useless
us.
eaters. Who calls us that?
That
The-
what's his name? Yoel Noah Harari. Is that his name, from
Is
the
that
World
from the World
Economic Forum?
Economic Forum?
Yeah,
Useless
yeah.
eaters. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah. He
I
seems
mean,
like a
let's be
stand-up
real.
guy.
I have to take a moment to have some intellectual honesty. I do believe that there are individuals or reptilians, you could say, if you want to go on that little path.
They live, we sleep.
There are individuals, whether human or not human, that I do believe that they think they are some evolutionary development that is surpassed Homo sapiens. I do think that there are some individuals that hold that belief, that there is no way that the person working at McDonald's who can hardly speak the English language, let alone another language, is the same as them, as John Kerry said at the World Economic Forum, that we are selected to do all these things.
The word he used was extraterrestrial.
Extraterrestrial, exactly. Thank you so much for reminding me of that. But
how could I forget something like that?
But he said we were it's almost extraterrestrial. We are selected to make these decisions
By God.
Did he even say God?
No, they don't believe in the they are God.
Yes, they are God. That they were selected by Gaia to determine the future of the planet. And I happen to believe that they do think that they are, Homo superior, or, as that's
It's a good word.
It's just a term I'm throwing out. It's not necessarily, I'm sure they actually do have a term for themselves, but Homo superior as opposed to Homo sapiens. Who are the Homo sapiens? Us losers. Okay. Let's be real. We're Homo sapiens. But I just want to challenge the audience and challenge ourselves that you go to the Walmart on the first weekend of the set month on a Saturday to the Coal Region Walmart, and you see the plenty of the plethora of people
in Schuylkill County.
Yeah,
the scoop
rolled out of bed, are in their pajamas, have some strange colors in their hair. And I don't mean like fun rainbow. I mean like they dyed them 6 months ago and their hair is all straggly, unwashed and greasy. And they just look like they've gotten out of bed, and their kids are screaming. All these children are screaming. And then they pull out, they have just, and you see on the grocery line, you see the sodas and the Twinkies and the ding dongs and this whatever, the fruity snacks, whatever they're
it's all
filling
refined
themselves
sugar.
with. They're
it's
refined
just,
sugar.
It's like a giant brick of refined sugar.
No food on there, and they're filthy. And they pull out their EBT card, and there's a little fraction of your income that's paying for all of the madness you just witnessed. And you tell me that you don't have a split second thought that you think this person is not the same species as me. Okay. So don't lie.
Why do you think the elites don't go shopping?
Well, the elites don't go shopping, but I'm saying we as just middle class individuals, I'm sure I'm not the only person that goes to a store like that and thinks these people are useless eaters. So I kind of give them a little bit of mercy that people like John Kerry think that they too that I'm a useless eater. Like, I understand. And what I'm challenging us to do is recognize that, have a moment of intellectual honesty, and realize that no matter what you preach, there's a part of you that also believes those people are useless eaters. But what I want to challenge us all to think is they are not useless eaters. They are children of God. They've just lost their way.
Just like MS-13.
So, yes,
remember when like Nancy Pelosi said that about MS-13?
I mean, Nancy's kind of right about that, but truly, I mean, I truly believe that, but I understand, and what I'm trying to say is I can understand how somebody like John Kerry, how somebody like Klaus Schwab, not Klaus Schwab, it is Klaus Schwab, right?
Yeah, the head of the World Economic Forum.
I always think I'm saying Charles Schwab, the investment firm.
I'm sure Charles Schwab feels similarly.
So Klaus Schwab, how maybe I don't even think Joe Biden knows what he is. But I can comprehend how these people can feel like
he's a breaker boy.
He's a breaker
That's
boy.
what he thinks he is.
He's just an Amtrak riding breaker boy.
Right, from Scranton.
But I'm saying I can understand how they can get to the point where they think there's no way I'm the same species as whatever this filth is. And
sure.
I think that we need to challenge ourselves to understand that every person has a purpose and every person is redeemable. Even MS-13, like good old Nancy said. Colin's like, I don't know. You just gave me that look like I am not going to endorse anything she just said.
No, I was honest to God.
You're like, you're not Christianity BS again.
No, I am actually in agreement with you fully that every human being has value.
Yes.
I just think that
to an extent. No, I'm kidding.
These elites, they created this. They created these system, this system for
this neo-serfdom.
Sure, and it's only going to get worse from here on out. You know, with AI continuing to grow at this insane rate. I mean, where are we going to be in? I don't think most people can comprehend that 6 months from now, the entire landscape can be completely changed. I was just telling you before we got on air here how when I go on LinkedIn, the only posts that I see are people from these white collar big tech companies being like, well, I was one of the 9,000 that was affected by the layoffs today at such and such, you know, insert whatever big tech company you want, you know, I'm open to work, and everybody's got the green banner on their profile on LinkedIn, open to work. I'm seeing a heck of a lot more green banners these days than I am people who are gainfully employed. So we're really heading straight on to a crisis of an unemployment crisis of epic proportions, the likes that we have never seen before in this country. I mean, this is beyond Weimar Germany stuff here, because there was no AI back in the 1930s. This is a horse of a different color, as the great wizard would say. So I don't know what the path is to, you know, other than getting one of those brain chips implanted that Elon Musk wants to do, the Neuralink, so that you can be one with AI. I have no idea. I feel like we're just kind of walking on a high wire right now.
That sounds like some Mark of the Beast stuff right there. I don't know about that.
Well,
Elon's the Antichrist.
See, his whole thing is, well, AI is going to...
It's going to happen.
Yeah, we're going to have no choice if we want to survive. Like, that's his whole thing. Like, we're going to have no choice, or else AI is going to destroy us. Maybe perhaps not like exactly like it was in Terminator 2 Judgment Day, one of the greatest films of all time. Agreed. Top 10 bar none. Perhaps not exactly like
not
that.
On par with Titanic, though, I understand.
Well, Titanic is number one, and Terminator. I'm putting Titanic twice. That's how good it is. No, it's Titanic number one and Terminator 2 Judgment Day number two are the two like the pinnacle of modern cinema. I don't want to go off on that though,
Yeah,
because
sorry.
that's an entirely different podcast. I don't know. Do you have any solutions in your head as to what people can do, like especially white collar workers who thought that they were safe due to their coding skills and whatnot? I mean, do we just go on the universal basic income and just kind of say, oh well, this is what it is now, and we get our little government stipend, and then they tell us what we can and can't buy. And imagine you go to get money out of the money machine, and there's a message saying that you have to delete your hateful tweet
Yeah.
or your Facebook post, or else they're not going to give you anything.
Yeah. It's like, we know where you've been. You're not going to get one of your CBCDs or whatever. Did I say that right? Central bank digital currency.
Central bank digital currency. You know
Central
what the
bank,
good
so I
news
said it
is,
wrong.
though? I feel like more people than I thought would be privy to this whole scheme that they're rolling out here, because my father, I think he just turned 67 recently, and he knows all about the central bank digital currency, and he has a very basic understanding of how dangerous this is and how this is going to be a total axing of every single freedom that you've just grown up to accept is inherent. And we'll always be able to just go to Best Buy and buy a flat screen TV, and who could possibly prevent us from doing that? Well, more people in his age group are beginning to understand what this is, understand that it's coming. And is the solution, is it going to boil down to the states, like at a state level, a state government saying, no, we're not going to allow CBDCs here? Like, where is this all headed? Do they have a choice even? I don't know.
Yeah. Yes. That's a good, like you said, because a lot of times the federal system will hold them hostage because they won't give them federal dollars.
Right. No funding for you, Florida.
I think the answer is, I think the answer is that these states need to, I think what we're going to see is, and we're already witnessing it, is that blue places are going to get bluer and red places are going to get redder. And we're already kind of seeing that. And I think what people have to do and what states have to do is wholly depend on themselves for what they're going to need. And I think you outlined in saying that something that we forget, that there was a huge battle between federalists and like anti-federalists many years ago. Like, you hear that, and honestly, I'll sit here and say I was kind of ignorant listening to it in American history in freshman year of high school and thinking like, who cares? What does that even mean? And even I was like kind of involved in politics and interested. And even at the time, I didn't really comprehend why that was such an important issue. But we're the United States of America, and we're slowly becoming the divided states of America. And the way our system is set up is that we are a group of 50 different states that have chosen to elect certain people to represent us at a national level. But that's slowly over time been eroded and become more of the federal government telling all the states what to do. And now we're finally starting to see, and we've seen it in the past, obviously. This isn't the first time that this has kind of come up. I think it's always a tension that's happening in the United States. And I think right now we're seeing it again, where the stakes are even higher. What exactly, I know we've had the conversation before that it's more of a rural urban divide than really even different. You might have maybe Florida to Louisiana and Texas are kind of one group that kind of goes along with each other. But as soon as you get into like Virginia and Pennsylvania and New Jersey, you have so it's not, the map isn't exactly separated. It's not a clearly defined north and south, it's all over the place where there's all this different division. And I have, living in Pennsylvania, we're so divided. We are like this close. We are like 3 people decide the election, like that's what I always tell people when they tell me they don't vote in Pennsylvania. I'm like, there is almost no place in the country more that your vote matters than Pennsylvania. You might as well, because you can actually see the numbers. That's if, the numbers are real. But
you know what though? Pennsylvania, when you look at Pennsylvania, really, where are the blue areas? It's like Philadelphia and Pittsburgh.
And a little bit of like Wilkes-Barre, Scranton. Yeah.
Oh, those well-to-do aristocrats in Wilkes-Barre and Scranton.
Well,
and the Lehigh Valley.
I think maybe State College too, with the university students, but really a lot of what Scranton and Wilkes-Barre are those good old breaker boy Joe Biden people. They're timers that are maybe there's a little bit of a liberal influence, but some of it is a union influence. My grandfather, he could care less that he was Catholic and care less about who was supporting, a lot of times Catholics will vote for the pro-life candidate, but my grandfather was a union guy and he voted for the Union Democratic before he cared about pro-life issues. So, money before the children.
Just a side note, because that jarred my memory. I remember one time when I was 18 and I had just, become of age to vote. And at that time, like a lot of us, we were all super into Obama. Like we really thought that this was going to be sort of a changing.
You speak for yourself, but go ahead.
Well, hey, a lot of people, especially
yes, you're right.
There was an excitement.
There was an excitement.
Maybe even the majority, right? There was an excitement. There was a buzz. There was this illusion that finally someone was going to come along and sort of change things up a little bit and be, more for the working class. And I remember being over my aunt's house for a birthday party, and my grandparents were there. And my grandfather, God rest his soul, he was very, very, anti-abortion, pro-life. And I don't know how politics came up. I think I said something negative about McCain. And oh my God, the look on my grandfather's face, his eyes practically bulged out of his skull. And he was like, well, I don't want Obama to get in there. He's for abortion and I'm Catholic and I don't know what the hell you are. And I was like, whoa.
Yeah, you just completely disappointed your grandfather for all time. How many grandchildren did he have?
Oh God. Well, I mean, there was me, there was my cousin, he had, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There was at least 6 of us.
So you were written out of the will.
There was at least 6. No, because he kind of dug that I was on radio and later in life. He really thought that was very,
that was going somewhere.
Yeah. He thought I was going somewhere. I'm glad he's not here now to see what ultimately happened. But no, I just had to share that story because that was an example right there of a lot of the old timers, especially, very staunch religious folk, Catholics, yeah. Other issues really didn't have any bearings. It was all just, you vote pro-life. And hey, if the pro-life candidate it was going to start a nuclear war, hey,
those lives I'm willing to risk.
At least they're pro-life, Yes. Who cares about, them sending drones to bomb weddings in Pakistan, Their lives don't matter, right?
Exactly. Well, I think it's interesting when you consider the pro-life conversation and the AI conversation. When Roe v. Wade was overturned in 2022, I had a conversation with someone and I said, what we have to understand is, and what's being lost in this fire and this fiery conversation about abortion rights, is that we do as humans need to fundamentally decide what is life? Like, what is a valuable,
What is a woman?
what is a woman? Whatever it wants, whatever J.K. Rowling says. Uh,
That's right.
but well, like we need to decide as a human race or species or whatever you want to call it, we need to decide what is a viable life. What does constitute life? Because right now we don't really have that nailed down. And there could be a future very soon on the horizon where we don't get to decide. AI, artificial intelligence, will decide for us. And today, you are a living person that votes and has a job, et cetera, maybe doesn't have a job, maybe lives off welfare. And you are considered a person of viable life. You are considered a person that if you were murdered, they would have the government would intervene and prosecute your murderer. But who's to say that artificial intelligence can't look at you and say you're a net negative on the human race, that you're net negative on society? I mean, I can personally speak that there have been times, I had 2 transplants. Now, actually, I've had 3 transplants. I had 2 transplants at 29 years old. And there are many times when I saw what those actual bills were, with the actual costs, the millions of dollars that it costs for me to be taken care of in the hospital. And I thought, am I worth that? Am I really worth all of that? Would a panel decide that my life was a net positive and really worth all this medical treatment? So I think the death, exactly. And I'm saying today that could be human beings deciding that, be someone that understands the intimacy, the minutia of what it really means to be alive. And tomorrow, that could be something that we don't even comprehend. It could be artificial intelligence, something that we design or somebody designs and then designs itself. So I'm saying it could just be a technology deciding that, well, Mr. Anderson, we'll say from the Matrix, Mr. Anderson comes in and the artificial intelligence, the algorithm decides, well, Mr. Anderson, it turns a 51-year-old white male who works as a lawyer. And well, you know what? Mr. Anderson needs quadruple bypass surgery. And the artificial intelligence could sit there and decide, the algorithms could decide, well,
not worth it.
I don't like, not worth it. So reject, decline, obsolete, as Rod Serling wrote in the Twilight Zone episode, The Obsolete Man. So that is my conversation. When somebody asks me if I'm pro-life, I am pro-life, but I want you to sit there and decide what is a viable life, and maybe the conversation isn't necessarily whether you're pro-abortion or pro-life or pro whatever, but what does that mean? And we need to nail down and decide before we no longer get to make that decision. So that's just my little I got a little preachy. I'm sorry.
Unfortunately, I think that the lines are only going to become increasingly more blurred as to what we define as a life. And this kind of ties into, I know I brought him up earlier, this Yuval Noah Harari of the World Economic Forum. Mm-hmm. I was just watching a clip of him today speaking where he was essentially talking about, now this ties into the social credit score that's coming. And his whole argument in a nutshell is, well, this wouldn't be discrimination on whether you're white, black, Jewish, Christian. Oh, no, this isn't discrimination. He was essentially trying to say that this is going to be a legitimate form of discrimination because the AI is going to scan everything. It's going to scan all of your social media posts. And basically it's going to determine whether or not you are a good person. And now who decides whether or not you're a good person? Is that,
what is good?
Is it God? Is it, no, and yeah, exactly. What is good? What is good? Who defines that?
What is good?
Who determines what is good? Well, I guess the AI is going to determine that. I guess the state is going to determine that. I mean, could you imagine too this whole chat GPT thing? I mean, it's amazing what it can do. I mean, there's kids that are sitting in college dorms probably having this thing do their thesis for them or whatever. But could you imagine what the government actually has behind closed doors? The AI that they have access to, the AI that the military has access to. I mean, I think it's beyond our wildest comprehension.
Yeah.
And therefore, there needs to be, and this is not an original thought, by the way. I've heard this presented by a litany of folks. There needs to be like a new amendment for AI, like a second amendment for AI to guarantee that we the people, we the plebeians, the peasants are going to have access to this to its full potential, because AI harnessed by the state, like imagine if like Hitler, Stalin, Mao had access to AI, like the implication, like good Lord, Hitler might have won the war. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Like, so therefore there needs to be some sort of constitutional guarantee that since this is a thing, I don't think there's any getting the genie back in the bottle, so to speak. We need to have access to whatever they have access to.
Well, I'm certain that Miss Harris, our VP, now the AI czar, who also is a lover of yellow school buses, will certainly be having those conversations. Will certainly spearhead that and make sure that we have a more more open and free society that just, as Joe Biden said in his speech, not a speech, but his campaign announcement that he is running for re-election. He said, America is about he said, individual freedoms. And I thought, this is the person that told us all we had to get a vaccine or we wouldn't have a job. So I feel like it's like anytime they tell us what they're going to do, it's the exact opposite of what they say. Whatever they say, whatever the word is, expect to have less of it. So if it's personal freedom, expect to have less. And yeah, I don't imagine that Kamala is going to be off. Let's be real. Is Kamala even she's not even calling the shots at this point. So I highly doubt that they are going to give us, I could see this being something that they like declared martial law over, because it just seems like something that would go that way, that they need to have total control of it, that the people can't understand, that they need to protect us from any of this intelligence. I know that Google has been the one that's been at the forefront of the quantum computing. And also, fun fact, Nancy Pelosi would fly on Google's plane. So that's wonderful to know. They would like fly her back and forth to DC. And I sometimes wonder too, I'm like, is Google really just on its own? Is it really a private company? Like, do we really believe? And in some ways, maybe it is, and they just are at the forefront of everything, but they are at the forefront of supercomputing, and the quantum computing is essentially necessary to do all of that, all those equations and all that information at such a hyper speed. And it's so, we'll just have to, where are we even going to get all this energy for these quantum computing? Okay. Like that's really where is that energy going to come from as they're taking coal power offline? We're moving to, green energy that's been,
it's all going to come from wind turbines, Karen.
Yeah, it's all going to come
wind
from
turbines, solar panels. We don't need no stinking coal and nasty oil anymore. Yes. Get rid of it all right now. Ban all gas lawnmowers by 2025.
I don't want to misquote, but the president of Colombia came to the United States recently. I believe it was the president of Colombia. And he said that this whole climate change initiative is really about wealth redistribution. Like he just straight up said, I don't think he said it as a bad thing. I think he meant it as a good thing. That
at least he was honest.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
I like when they're honest, at least. Like, okay, he thinks it's a good thing. He wants to kill us, but he's saying that, very matter of factly, granted, but At least he's not disguising it.
Well, I mean, in some ways, some people believe there is this idea that the climate change initiatives and a lot of the things that are taking place right now are the whatever powers you want to call it, the World Economic Forum. I'm not even sure who to blame for any of this at this point in time, but that they would want the devil. I do blame the devil. I'm one of those freaks, but they believe that we are all, that the reason why they're trying to move us to green energy and take us off of fossil fuels and do all these different initiatives is really so that they realize that they can't get the entire world population of about 8 billion people. I'm not even sure what the number is currently. They can't get all of us, all of the world, to come up to the living standards of the United States. So in order to make a more equitable society or world, and to not, just, I guess, rape the earth and take all of its resources to all these plebeians, they've decided that all of us serfs need to live on a lower level, and they can all, of course, have all of the goods and all the resources for themselves. And we're all in the West a little too spoiled, and we need to get used to a lower living standard. So that's one theory that's been put out there by these crazy people that actually read all the information.
Conspiracy theorists.
Crazy these MAGA extremists.
They listen to Alex Jones.
Yeah, so that's one
Tucker
theory.
Carlson.
But that leads into another topic we want to talk about today, because yet again, some intellectual honesty. We do have such a level of wanton and just a level of excess in this country that I have happened to mention once in the past, or many a times, that one of my favorite programs to watch is a highly intellectual pursuit called My 600-Pound Life. And
I thought you were going to say Louder with Crowder.
I forgot we got to talk about that.
We've got to touch
Sorry,
upon
my
that,
nose is itchy. I'm
there.
not picking my nose, or I wouldn't do it on camera.
That's okay. That'll be like a TikTok.
Yeah, that will be like a TikTok of me looking like I like snort cocaine because I'm rubbing my nose so much. It's allergies.
Whatever it takes, Karen.
Yes.
Whatever it takes.
Whatever it takes. If I got to take pictures of my freaking feet and put them on OnlyFans, that's what we're gonna do. Doggone it.
I thought about it.
But yeah. So My 600-Pound Life. So there is a part of America that is a little outrageous, that like you can live on welfare and still eat so much food that you can get up to 800 pounds. Like, can we just take a moment to recognize in this country, they act like they like to act like things are so horrible and that people are like starving. No, poor people are not starving. They are feasting themselves to death. That is what's currently happening. And any child that is going hungry in this country, it's because their parent, their parent actually gets up and tries to work and has some dignity. And these corporations have tried to get every dime of profit for themselves and don't pay the people, or the parents must be, gorging themselves until they're 800 pounds. So I thought it would be fun to go over the top states. We'll just cover the top 5 because we need to do Louder with Crowder. So because of time constraints, I want you to guess what might be the top 5 states. You don't have to pick 5, but I just want you to come up with what you think might be the top 5 states.
I'm going to say that Pennsylvania has got to be in there because I feel like we grew up consuming a lot of very doughy, sugary type of food, like funnel cake, we would go to the pierogies, stove rags. That's something I learned about just the other day. Actually, I was not aware.
Stove rag?
Stove rag, I'm going to do a horrible job of explaining it, but I think this was like sort of a Lithuanian slash Slovak type of food that,
Yes.
and it was a big to do. Like the churches would advertise, like we've got stove rags today down in the basement.
I want
It was
some
like a
damn
big.
stone rags.
It was it's like a glob of dough, essentially,
Yeah.
like a glob of
Yeah.
dough and sugar that you would cook on the stove, obviously, hence the name. I didn't mean to throw you off there. Is Pennsylvania
No,
top five?
no, it's not even top 10.
No kidding.
No kidding. I know. Shocking. All right. So I pretty much assume that some of the southern states would be on there, but that's not because like I love the South and I really don't want to trash them. I just am familiar with these weird statistics because I'm a freak. So coming in at number 5 is the great state of Mississippi.
Okay, I can see that.
Yeah. So number 4 is Oklahoma. Let me just say that I was surprised Mississippi number was a number 1. Number 3 is Kentucky. Number 2 is Alabama. And number 1 is West Virginia, which kind of surprised me, but
Wow.
then didn't shock me after I realized Mississippi wasn't number 1. It did not shock me that West Virginia was number 1. But that kind of goes back to what I was saying. I've spent a lot of time in West Virginia. It's a beautiful state and a lot of great people, but they have a lot of poverty in West Virginia. And that's a story for a whole nother day. It's not necessarily because it's like you said, it's in some ways, these people, these elites set up these situations that cause people to live in these circumstances. And West Virginia is a really, really good example of that. And like I said, these people are somehow 40% of the state is obese, and they're all very largely living off welfare. So we live in a country where you can have no job and feast yourself to death. I think we need to start changing things to get people back into, but maybe that's where we need them to be because there's no jobs. AI is coming to take the jobs anyways. So,
Well, here's the thing. My whole thing is that, you mentioned nobody's really starving. What it is they're buying all the wrong stuff. They're buying just all of this refined sugar and these
just lack of nutrients.
refined, exactly, lack of nutrients, refined grains. I mean, Fruity Pebble cereal, they may say that that's part of a balanced breakfast. They may put that on the food pyramid. I mean,
All
the
a bunch
food
of
pyramid,
lies.
don't even get me started.
Yeah,
That's
that's
a
another
whole,
conspiracy.
yeah, like they have all of these refined, sugary, processed foods, like way at the top. And God forbid you want to eat a steak. Oh no steak for you. That's
Yeah,
bad for the
just eat all the
environment.
bread. That's good
Yeah.
for you.
Yep. Yep. Just get a loaf of white refined bread. Go and get the blue box, mac and cheese. I mean, I love myself a good, blue box of Kraft mac and cheese as much as the next person, but that should not be a part of your every.
Daily diet. Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's part of it too. And I will say for West Virginia, I do want to defend these people. I know there's a lot of conversation about food deserts in the city. But people in the city live so much closer to a grocery store option. And I know that a lot of people that live in urban communities don't drive. So I understand that maybe the grocery store that does carry vegetables and fruits and more nutritious food might be another 20 minutes away. But people in West Virginia, so I'm familiar with the county, McDowell County. It's one of the poorest counties. It was the first county in the country to roll out food stamps. Their Walmart closed. They couldn't even sustain a Walmart. This is how impoverished this place. You go there and visit and you think you're not even in the United States, the level of poverty that you'll witness.
Why is Tim
And
Pool building his entire empire in West
it's a
Virginia?
different part about, well, because he knows what's up. With the internet, you can pretty much live anywhere, but yeah, there's parts of West Virginia where you feel like you've gone back in time. And these people, they don't live another 15 minutes from a nutritious grocery store. They live like 50 miles from a nutritious grocery store, somewhere that doesn't sell processed food. So I will defend the people of West Virginia in saying that, yeah, the food deserts are not some liberal mumbo jumbo. They really do exist. And, but I think that comes back full circle to our conversation about AI and what we can realistically do. And I think what we can do is build communities and, kind of get back to relying on ourselves. I mean, there's a huge movement towards like homesteading, towards gardens. Build yourself an AI garden. Where you think instead of a victory garden, we'll call it an AI garden, where you can garden for yourself, where you can, maybe you garden a certain crop and one of your friends does something else and you trade that, or you have a certain skill that is useful and you can barter. And I think that in some ways we build these communities.
Such a communist.
Yes, I'm. No, that's capitalism, because you're bartering. You're not just like giving to the other people. But yeah, no, I think I've just recently like really felt a strong need for community, because I think that we're starting to live in a world that is post-truth. And we need to seek out people and others that can agree on what truth is, because we're starting to see that the government does not want us to understand truth, does not tell us the truth. But we know what it is, and we've got it. And you're not alone. Like, if you're listening to this, you are not alone. There's someone very, very close to you, whether you live in a city, whether you live in another country, whether you live in the hollers, whether you live in the desert. There is somebody that does understand you and knows the truth, and you can develop a relationship with them. And we need to put down the phones, we need to get off our screens, and we need to enmesh ourselves with others that agree with us, because we're going to depend on each other more and more than we can even understand right now.
We're going to try and come to you every week to have these intense intellectual conversations about politics, culture, history, all that good stuff. So if you're still hanging in there, thank you very much, folks. And anything you would like to close with, Karen?
As I've said in the past, and I will say again, I just hope that none of this will be used against me in the court of law.
I can echo that sentiment. So on that note, take good care of yourselves and your families, and we'll see you in the near future at the ReEducation camp. Have a good one, folks.